Hello, this is Carolyn Bupert with the League of Women Voters of Portland. You're watching our video voters guide or maybe listening on podcast, and I'm here today with a candidate running for Portland City Council. We are grateful to the Carol and Velma Sailing Foundation, the Weiss Foundation, the League of Women Voters of Portland Education Fund, and our media partner, Metro East Community Media. I'm here with Jonathan Tasini, who is running for Portland City Council District 2. Welcome.
It's a pleasure to be here, and I'm very excited to be here. I'm a big fan of what the League of Women Voters does for the voters.
Thank you. Tell us a little about yourself and why you're running for this office.
So I'm proudly a 40-year union member, 32 years in the UAW. I'm a person in my adult life that is focused on one thing and one thing only: how to make the lives of working people and retirees better. I'm also an avid cyclist, hiker, and camper. But the reason I'm running is I want to be the voice for decent wages and working conditions. And I'm supported by more unions than anybody in the city running in this district or any of the four districts. Portland is a great city. It still has challenges. And the one challenge that we share with cities across the nation is the question of inequality. I really believe that this clean slate gives us a chance to be a beacon to create the most pro-worker city in the nation, which also means great economic vitality.
Thank you. What are your ideas for working productively with the other members of the council who are in your district?
Well, I had decades of coalition work. I ran my own executive board in my union. I ran a union for 13 years. I had to manage a delegate body of 100 people. So I'm very familiar with working with people of different viewpoints and different backgrounds. I think actually I'm quite excited about this. I think this will be a wonderful thing for our constituents because they'll actually have three people who they can turn to get their issues resolved. And I think it'll be very simple. Whoever's elected, if I'm lucky enough to be ranked number one and elected by the voters, I will sit down with my colleagues, the other two who are elected, and say, hey, what's your expertise? What is your interest? And I think it'll be pretty seamless to divide up transportation, housing, economic issues. Frankly, we're only budgeted to have one staff person per council member. So I think we'll be eager to work with each other.
Yeah, thank you. What actions, if any, would you consider taking to address the current concerns related to the critical energy infrastructure hub on the Willamette?
I'm very familiar with the hub. Actually, I'm a 5-year member of my neighborhood emergency team. So we've been trained quite well in the unfortunate event if there was a major earthquake, what would happen with this CEI. And frankly, it would be a disaster of major proportions. The dangers are not just, however, related to an earthquake. Toxins are released every day that our kids throughout my district, District 2, and frankly, throughout the city are breathing. What we need is a real plan to move the tanks. That's not going to happen overnight. It's going to take some time. And what I want to do is be a leader, and I'm working already with the community groups such as Tank the Tanks. I want to be a leader to work with the community, work with the state to have a real plan to move the tanks off the Willamette.
Thank you. You're listening to the League of Women Voters of Portland Video Voters Guide, or you might be listening to a podcast. And I'm here with Jonathan Tasini, who is running for Portland City Council District 2. So, are you satisfied with the performance of the Joint Office of Homeless Services? And if not, what changes would you support? And then please explain.
I'm not satisfied. I don't want to be too harsh about the joint office. I think part of this is a failure of the current city council, frankly, and the failure to establish a working relationship with the county. We have to be grown-ups. We shouldn't be fighting over turf. And I think it's a gross failure on the part of the current city council not to have established that relationship. Now, I see homelessness as primarily an economic issue. There's no question that we have issues of addiction and mental illness, but the majority of people who are homeless, it's because they've experienced an economic crisis. So I am the sole candidate in this race advocating for raising the minimum wage over time to $25 an hour. The study by the Coalition of Low Income Housing showed that in order to get a 2-bedroom home in our great city, the minimum wage should be $32 an hour. So I'm going to push very hard to raise people's wages so they can afford the rent. I'm one of the endorsers of the Renters' Bill of Rights, which would increase people's protection so they wouldn't become homeless because of unfortunate actions by landlords. And the last thing I'll say about the joint office, we need wraparound services to ensure that at the end of all that process, when we're dealing with, for example, addiction, people can get real jobs so they can afford the rent.
Thank you. What skills, experience, and interests distinguish you from other candidates for this position?
Well, I was proudly president of my own UAW local for 13 years. So I did the whole range of running our local union, the finances, the budget, the strategy. I've done extensive legislative lobbying at the local, state, and federal level. I've done political outreach, building coalitions, as I mentioned before. I've overseen our organizing campaigns. I actually won a case in the United States Supreme Court that set a standard for rights for all freelance creators. So in other words, in my position, I think, frankly, very few people running in any district have this kind of background. I can bring to the table this long record of budgeting experience, fiscal acumen, administrative experience, and the basic principles of how to formulate and pass legislations and how to count votes, because we all are going to have to be able to count to 7, which is what you need in the city council for a majority to pass legislation. So I think I have broad experience and actually the experience of getting things done.
Thank you. So this concludes our Video Voters Guide interview with Jonathan Tasini, running for Portland City Council District 2. The election day is Tuesday, November 5th. And thank you for joining us and increasing your knowledge about the candidates and therefore making yourself into an informed voter. And don't forget to vote on the 5th. Thank you.